So Wicked Questions 2017. Another one of them is how can we improve one-to-one conversations for learning? This also encompassed the idea of improving the consistency for all of our students across the inquiry process, which we felt was important. We did this in a number of ways. In previous years, the teacher role had been split between a free flow role and a mentor. In the 2017 inquiry, we really made a big decision to create a single role. So all teachers were mentors, guides, and sages. The idea behind this being that we could really focus our energy and concentration on training teachers and improving their ability with one-to-one conversations to be better mentors. We felt this would have a greater impact not only on the inquiry itself, but also on the wider pedagogy within the school. It also meant that we could create equal time allocation for all teachers. This goes a long way towards morale and making sure that everybody feels that there's parity and equality across the process. It also allowed us to give the teachers choices. We talked about personalisation of the inquiry for students, but we also allowed that to happen for teachers, so they could choose whether they wanted to go on an art or STEM pathway and which particular world that they were interested in finding out more. This meant that they went through the same kind of process as the students, and they were therefore much more equipped to help them in their own journeys. We also created a more detailed and structured leadership structure. We started this with 2016 would be the change, and we improved it this year. Andrew Rankin and Alex Turner, we call them the Masters of the Universe, really sat at the top of the tree. They had the overview of seeing everything that was going on within the inquiry. They troubleshot and they worked with various leaders within the inquiry to make sure that things were going smoothly and that good learning was taking place. Each of the 4 worlds that we've talked about had their own leaders. These were volunteers from the school staff, but all of them have been heavily involved in inquiry before, and they're all part of our inquiry focus group. Underneath them sat team leaders. Now the idea of this was the world leaders could see what was going on in their world. They could work out where, and the team leaders would help them of course, and they could work out where students were potentially not progressing, where interventions might need to happen, where best conversations were going to take place. If students were doing well and moving on, then we don't need to be helicopter mentors and standing over them and asking questions just because we feel we should. Instead, we spend our time with the students that really need to be pushed to take them further or are not understanding. This way the conversations are richer and have a much bigger impact on learning. By having these leaders overviewing the rooms and looking at what was going on and exploring the data dashboard that we created, we were much more likely to achieve this goal. The overall structure, so we had our Master of the Universe at the top, our world leaders, then we had our team leaders, and these team leaders were based within their pathway, so we had a STEM and an arts team leader for each of the worlds. Underneath them, the rest of the mentors were split into 2 teams, Team A and Team B. So Team A would always work together and Team B would always work together. Now interestingly, in years gone past, when teachers swapped with each other from one room to another, often there was no conversations going on around which students were doing what. And this could lead to some confusing situations for the students who'd just been told one thing by a particular mentor and then somebody else came in and said, no, you shouldn't do it like that, you should do it like this. So we made sure this time round that there was clear handover. So when Team A finished and Team B came in, there was handover. Here are the kids that are doing well, here's what the data says, here's where we've been spending our time. The same would happen when Team A came in and so on as the teams went through. We also created very, very clear checkpoints. Now these checkpoints were based around the groups, if they were working in groups, but the individuals did these as well. And these were paper checkpoints. Basically a point on paper on the desk where the mentors could really see if the group was getting it, if they were understanding, and not allowing them to move on until a certain level of understanding had been achieved. This was really important because otherwise you can get to the end of the inquiry and find that really you've sort of lost half of them along the way. Now just as important as this was the individual checkpoint. We wanted to know how students were progressing individually within this group setting. So we used iPads, video surveys, questionnaires, quizzes to allow us to get a substantial amount of data on how the students were progressing. and there is an answer to more detail on that within the how did we sort the individual progress out within the group setting. Wicked question on one of the next pages. We also spent more time than ever this year training the mentors. So we set aside 6 hours, I think it was over the total time, where the mentors could go through the inquiry process that the students were going to go through. They got to know that. They worked within their teams, with their team leaders and their world leaders. They went through possible scenarios. They created question sets that they could use to ask the kids. And all of this really did lead to a better experience for the students. There was certainly improved consistency, and there was definitely improved one-to-one conversations. What we really hope to see now, and we believe we are starting to see, is some of that learning from our staff being taken into their classrooms on an everyday basis. So that idea of a mentor other than a teacher, or a coach even, is really starting to hold true in classrooms around the school.